Suits, 100-kilometer-an-hour gusts of wind here.
Love what Marshall Ferguson said on Twitter, DT. He said, this would have been week 8 for the XFL.
Yes. What would Craig Dickinson do if Brett Wilder, a possibility of a 37-yard field goal, but he would have to do it into the breeze or with, heaven forbid, a cross breeze. I don't even know how you could play that. That'd be amazing. That'd be fantastic to watch that try and happen.
Hey, and by the way, I love my new team. I got to just say it. I love my new team here with the Cage, and I get to listen to great country music as I listen to the beginning of your show before we start and do our hit. I get to listen to the great new country, some great old country, a nice mix of it. It's a good fit, man, and I love doing our deep dives into football every week.
I love it. Let's deep dive country music first. Top 3 artists of all time for Glen Suitor. Go.
Well, Garth really helped me through the transition. Yes. Yeah. He helped me through the transition. I mean, he owned the 90s, and that was right when I was going sort of from rock, and the Eagles was kind of a bit of a transition step too, and then into Garth. And then as soon as I got my Friends in Low Places down on my guitar, it was Garth the rest of the way. I'm a big Tim McGraw fan. Love Kenny Chesney in the summer when you're going to go to an outdoor concert. I look forward to that. Shania Twain is another favorite. Loved her at the halftime show in Ottawa when she came out in the dog sled. How Canadiana was that? I would say Tim McGraw and Garth Brooks are my top 2, but I don't want to miss out, and I got to say him, the King, George Strait, man. I saw him in Dallas, and he stands at the stage playing the guitar, singing every one of his hits, and man, he's got a lot of hits.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you go to see Garth when he was here at the stadium, or we saw Garth in Vegas when he just talked about how his music evolved throughout his career, and you just go, man, it's just one nonstop crushing hit after another. It's incredible when you kind of lay it down. I mean, from those early albums where he had the weird black and white shirt and 4/4, or the Checkers, whatever that was, or Standing Outside the Fire was on that album. He had some weird outfits in the 90s, but man, that music still bangs. Love it.
It does. And keep in mind that Garth was turned down by, I think it was 7 different record labels before he got his deal.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Which is why he called one of his albums 7 or something like that. Yeah.
Because he doesn't, we're getting super deep on country. he doesn't have incredible range in his singing, right? He doesn't hit super high notes, but I've never seen anybody have more fun being a musician than Garth Brooks.
Great concert. Great. And it feels like he's singing in your kitchen, which, by the way, somehow we're going to be playing guitar and singing in your kitchen. I don't know how that's going to work, DT, but we'll just figure that out as we go.
You, me, Zinger, The Rock. It'll be all of us. We'll just
love it.
Have a gay old time. We need to talk about The Rock burning it up on Twitter over the weekend, drawing the attention of everybody remotely connected with the CFL. For folks who didn't see it, I'll just kind of recap what happened, and then we'll start getting into our takes on it. Someone had posted in a conversation with Jim Mullins, the head of Football Canada. It was essentially a proposal to split the season to incorporate the CFL and the XFL. You'd have in this proposal 6 to 8 CFL XFL games in the springtime, and then from August to November, presumably the XFL would drop off and the CFL would just play among itself. Jim Mullins says, tweeted this, a quote from Jim on Twitter. One of the more interesting nuggets from what The Rock said when he was buying the assets of the XFL was that he wanted games at various times during the year. This is a possible path, referring to the previous gentleman's plan, that fits that narrative. Dwayne Johnson at The Rock jumps on and says, "Hi, gents. I never said that." Then he goes on to say this. "We'll figure out a smart season that'll create phenomenal opportunities for players and the best experience for our fans." Goes on to say, "I played ball. I wrestled 280 nights a year. I know the value of scheduling and recovery." Suits when Dwayne Johnson tweets, "We will figure out a smart season that'll create phenomenal opportunities for players and be the best experience for fans," is the sentence that everybody is going to capitalize on.
Yeah, it's like throwing a big roast right in a shark-infested swimming pool.
Really, yeah, absolutely. Because
Well,
we will do this. Oh, well, but do you have the mandate to do it with our league as well? Are you
yeah,
talking about the CFL as well as your own league? What are you saying in what you're saying?
exactly. And he didn't really specify any of that. But what I did, DT, is on the weekend, and that was part of the reason for it. But because of what we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, is to make some calls to real football people. I mean, people that are stakeholders. And I'm going to play the game if you'll allow me, because I don't like this. I'm not a fan of it, but I'm going to play the game just for today.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to reveal my source or sources.
Well, we know, my take on this. We know you. We trust who you talk to and who you know in the CFL. So that gives us a sense of who you're talking to without knowing who you're talking to. We know they're serious CFL people. Go ahead.
Yeah, real football people. And I wanted to ask how they were feeling about what was being said and what's, because we haven't really seen a lot of official statements from any really of the stakeholders in the league, other than to say, we're just talking, it's preliminary and things like that. So, I asked a bunch of questions to a bunch of people that are stakeholders, and the number one priority for all of them, and what dominated the conversations, were discussions on return to play. I mean, it had really nothing to do with the XFL or the Rock or tweets. It was about, learning more about plan A, B, and C. Everyone I talked to were talking about the fact that flexibility was going to be part of the discussion. They all understand that, whether that means financially, whether that means, scheduling and delays in scheduling. They watched that the leagues that have been playing through COVID also have to make adjustments on the fly. And I think that all the principals are basically ready to make those adjustments where necessary. However, everybody needs to plan their lives, and they have to look ahead, a couple of months, 2-3 months down the road to see where they're going to be, travel arrangements, all of the different protocols that are necessary. So it's fair to say and safe to say that the number one topic was that. And then I got to the XFL, of course, and asked how they feel about these discussions. And I have to say that, quite frankly, there was a lot of sort of eye rolling, and it's heavy eye rolling when you can hear it when you're on phone calls. I think there's a lot of the real football people that are sort of losing respect for those who are playing the speculation game at the extremes. And, and at times maybe, not necessarily qualified to be making assessments, but are making them anyway with an agenda driven sort of, goal in mind. So, I think there was sort of this, that is kind of on the edges of ridiculous, whatever you're arguing, whether it's to full merger or to get rid of the XFL altogether. It was sort of, that kind of losing respect for people that can be reporting news, certainly, but to give a real agenda-driven opinion and not really be qualified to do that was a bit of an eye roll for a lot of them. So, or for everyone that I talked to. But again, it always circled back to not necessarily hanging on every Rock tweet that comes out, but hanging on every tweet from guys like Wade Miller, who today was asked when he had to hand out the budget, and I know we're going to get to that, but he was asked today, can the team and the league survive a second year without playing? And his answer was no. It was a flat out no. We can't survive not playing in 21. And he said, but we won't have to because we're playing. And to all the real football people that I talked to over the last 2.5 days, every one of them is locked into those tweets, not locked into the Rock tweets.
Do those tweets tell us anything, though? Would be my take back to that, because when Wade Miller does it, or when Scott Mitchell, the CEO of the Ticats, does it, says 95%, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, that's what I expect you to say. That's got to be the party line. That's 100% in your best interest. That's what we all want to believe. But I don't know the truth behind it. if you know what I mean, because they have a particular agenda that they need to come true because for the reasons you just mentioned. So that then as an impartial observer makes me go, okay, are you telling me the truth or are you telling me what you hope the truth is?
Yeah. And I want to make it clear that this was a whole range of football people that I talked to.
Those are the first two examples of CEOs that have come out and said that came to my mind there.
Yeah, exactly. But when I say they're hanging on some of these tweets, not necessarily the ones that are sort of just opinion driven, which are kind of like, no, we can't miss another year. We got to play for sure. I want to play. We're doing everything we can. Not those ones. The tweets that they're really locked into, or the information, let's say it that way, not just social media. In fact, probably better not to just lock into social media, but it's the ones that, like when Wade Miller yesterday said that they're 95% to wrapping up all of their proposal for what will be required from medical protocols point of view. That's what they're looking at. And believe me, I think we all would like to know more. We'd like the league office to be updating on a more regular basis, I'm sure, to make sure that we're getting as much information as timely as we can so that we all know what our next 5 months are going to look like. And that's, where the priorities are for, I think, everybody in the sort of football world is when are we going to start if it's plan A? When are we going to start if it's plan B? Because it sounds like from all principles, we're playing. So we all understand the flexibility in it. And that we might have to, and I'll use the word everyone's using, we might have to pivot. But I always think of Friends when I think of pivot, and they're
pivot.
Yeah.
Let the coach up and like see you or whatever.
Try to take the coach up the stairs. Pivot.
Is there a for pivot at this time, or we haven't decided on that yet?
Give me a minute to think about
that. Okay, Zinger's going to consider the pivot. Pivot.
Okay.
It's not unprecedented. So
yeah, exactly. So anyway, they're thinking of that, and would like to get sort of more updates in that regard. And again, I think everyone I talk to is saying, hey, we'll all have an open mind. And you and I have talked about this, right here on this show. Mm-hmm. Let's have an open mind. Let's see what the conversations are all about and what they're talking about, and we'll see. But I will stand by the fact that I've said it many times, and I'll say it again. We are in a position of strength, if you ask me, from the Canadian Football League's point of view, because we have everything set up. We have a league, we have players, we have coaches, we have stadiums, and right now the XFL has none of that. So, basically it's a position of strength in that regard, and let's see where the talks go, and let's keep an open mind, but not hang on every tweet like it's like we're writing up schedules for a season in the near future.
You say position of strength, Suits, but then you also had Wade Miller saying we can't survive if we don't play this season. And posting a $7 million loss without paying back $2 to $4 million for their stadium.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't convey or connote real strength. There's an established league, there's an established fan base, but to take Wade Miller out to the extreme, if they don't play, there's none of that.
No, yeah, and
strength is a real we're doing some work here.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying between the two, and basically a league that has filed for bankruptcy twice, and that's not that's not necessarily just COVID. That's $250 million in losses in 1 year in 2020 for Vince McMahon with the last XFL attempt. But the news out of Winnipeg is not surprising. We know with no revenues there's going to be a loss. It's not good news, obviously, and there is work to be done for sure. I've been twisting the numbers, trying to look at some sort of angle that makes sense, because not makes sense, but that could bring a sort of a different look at it, which is, yes, $7 million in losses with no revenues coming in for the Bombers. When I look at the $36 million in revenues from 2019, the last time they played, now that's a good year because they're a championship team. So you're going to probably max out your revenues at that point. And then you look at the current salary cap, and where it's at, between 4.5 and 4.5 and 5.5, I start to think that to get to the point where the league is not losing money, as John Hodge in his article said recently.
Yeah.
When are we overstating it to say that it is a desperate situation financially for the league, and that the model is absolutely broken and we're hemorrhaging money badly? Or is that going way too far in one extreme? And it should be more that at 36 million in revenue for the Bombers and 5.5 million as your salary cap, which is your major expenditure, can you be at a break-even point and then build a marketing program that is Canadian born to increase revenues over time in sort of a long grind?
Let's get in the break and we'll jump into that on the other side as we continue on with Glen Suitor. We'll talk about the Bombers' financial picture, what it could mean for the Riders when they announce coming up in June. The Bombers posting a $7 million loss when revenues down about 90% from what they were in 2019. Suits, we talked about it. The Bombers announcing $7 million in losses. Revenues down from 36 million in 2019 to about 4 million in 2020. They were able to secure some help from the government, like many businesses were, with queues and a rent subsidy as well. They borrowed from a bank, $3 million plus. I mean, at the top line, what was a profit of about $600,000 in 2019 turned into a loss of $7 million in 2020 because of the pandemic. Independent of what happens this year, that's going to be a big hole to climb out of.
Yeah, it is. It was interesting to see the number of 36 million in revenues in 2019 and try and take a look in a non-pandemic year. I mean, this is the worst case scenario of all time for every business and for, certainly for sports. And I try and also keep it in perspective, because when you look at the decision to not play last year in 2020, when you look back at that now, it was probably a good one. I mean, the NHL is probably going to lose in the billions of dollars of revenue, and some are estimating around 2.5 billion in revenue for their 56 game schedule during COVID. And I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying that, when the decision was made to not play the season, mitigate the loss to regroup and be ready for 21, I think that was probably the right call. And now, it is going to be a hole to climb out of. I guess the question I have, and I'm not an accountant, DT, but so I don't want to pretend I have expertise. I don't. But if you're bringing in 36 million, your biggest expenditure is the players at 5.5. Can you relatively quickly, with discipline and management, which I think has been one of the issues for years, that there's just been a lack of discipline and management, that if you could get to, mitigating or eliminating losses fairly quickly, is that possible with 36 million in revenues? Let's say it's averaged at 30 and in revenues in the CFL right now, which, as Randy Ambrosie has said before, is a super large brand in our country and a small to medium sized business. So can you break even right away with 30 million in revenues and 5.5 as your cap right now?
Well, I guess the thing that goes into that, the Bombers, for their part, their total football operations expenditure was over $12 million, of which what counts against the cap in the 2019 would have been, in the last season would have been $5.25 million. But there's injured list that goes on above that. There's all your GMs and coaches. There's getting to games. There's
travel. Yep.
That goes into that. So about a third actually goes to making sure the players can play football.
Okay. So yeah, but I
just want to make sure we're clear. Everybody's clear on that part.
Yeah. And so can you be next year? Can you be at a break-even point, making 30 million in revenues with the current financial model? Could you be at a break-even point? Because if you can get there, DT, if you can get there really quickly, and then put together the marketing program, which I think needs to be completely torn up and redone.
Yeah. Well,
can you get there and start building revenues?
Can you get there without mass firing people? That's the thing.
Yeah, no cuts.
But well, and that to me is going to be the problem, a problem, right? Because I wish I could pull the riders numbers off the top of my head, but they spend millions, they make millions of dollars from merchandise, but they also spend millions of dollars in order to get that money, right? So they make whatever the 10% margin is on that. And again, I'm just pulling that number out of my hair. It costs, there are points where it costs money to make money. You want to sell tickets, you have to staff your ticket office. You want to draw attention on social media, you need to hire people that do that. So can they, how far can they cut costs before they start hacking and slashing jobs and fewer players and smaller practice rosters? And and I don't know the answer to that, but that's the thing I start to worry about, is jobs of players and people who make the organization tick.
Yeah. And no, I don't, when people start to throw out things like, well, what would you go down to a 38-man roster and things like that? That's just not even
guys would die. And I wish I was exaggerating, but somebody would die.
No, that's not even a discussion.
No.
And we're not talking about that. I'm just talking about the numbers that are right in front of us, which is, let's say 30 million, because 36 million is a good year because they won the championship for the Bombers. That was released today. So if 30 million revenue can be accomplished right now for every team in the league, could you be disciplined in spending without cutting from this point on to get to break even right away, and then build your marketing program around the 125,000? And I just got these numbers in: 125,000 kids, and this was 2018 numbers, that are playing minor football in our country, either flag or tackle football in our country. And I'm suggesting that we are not near tapping into that, which is the low-hanging fruit in regards to filling stadiums. So, I guess that's my question when I look at the Bomber numbers. Everyone knew we were going to take a loss. The league is going to be hit, just like every other business and every other household in this country and around the world. But the question is, when you look at the number at the revenues and you look at expenses, and with discipline, can you solidify it, end the losses, and then put together a long-term plan to market, which may include the XFL or may not. Like I said, I'm keeping an open mind, but that's where I'm looking at these numbers that are coming out right now. I'm looking at them and saying, how far are we away from break even? How far are we away from, small gains every single year, and growing the game and growing revenues every single year?
Yeah, absolutely. Suits, thank you, my friend.
Thanks, DT.